Well, welcome to everyone. I hope we get some more people, but it looks not that promising. But hopefully, we'll get a lot of people watching this later on. We have, if you haven't noticed, I mean, if you want to have a recap, and you have been using MDriven for a long time, but there's a new boot camp, like that we have rephrased it, that should be easier also to quick pace if you want, because now there's much more like metadata about the video in there, so you can jump to the thing you might find interesting. So just a little bit about that we're working hard on the documentation and the news thing. Hopefully you also get a little bit of a newsletter where we also want to mention our blog that we are now putting an overdrive into. So we have several new guys learning MDriven, like advanced MDriven, you could say, and they're going to work with all these things, and they are also going to post on the blog. We just got an overhaul on its visuals also, so we hope to connect together some things in the newsletter points to the blog, and the blog points to the YouTube. So we are not as anonymous with our new features, because there's so many new features. You guys who have been here, you know that there's like things coming all the time, but I hope also that you will, it's like, oh, what was that? And then it will be easier for you to go back and find what was actually and how to use it. So we're now a team of 4 outside Sweden who works full time, and we're probably going to be 6 that works almost full time, just with all these things that support the product. And you will hopefully soon also find a better main site and a better portal where you will find it easier to try out new models. So if you want to, like, hey, let's see if this model is a good idea for me to merge into my model for some reason, then you can easily have a quick run at it and deploy it. We're also going to have we're going to have a guy that works most of his time just with deployment. So deployment will be better documented and will be easier to use on several platforms. So we hope that it will also then make it easier to, for example, run it with Docker Compose, so it's easier to get a new server up and running for testing ideas. So there's a lot of things going on, and it's fun. It's fun times, MDriven, because we hope to have a lot of new users join. And we also want to mention that UML is a standard, right? So we have actually found 2 universities that are probably, or at least they're trying out to create curriculums now for students on university level to use this as a way to teach general things. We are not, it's not about us. This is about teaching in general, about model driven. And so why shouldn't that be used? Because that's a problem, right? And the people I've talked to, they say, yes, we hear our teachers talk about UML diagrams, and we should understand database design, and we should understand all these things. And then boom, I go to like JavaScript and how do I connect the two? And we want to give them the ability to the teachers and the students to see this. And hopefully, of course, in our back thinking, of course, we want them to become modelers and then be able to use our products, not necessarily, on their own, but then if someone finds interesting models or you want to tweak and hire someone to help you, then these students should be possible to find on the portals. Like, yes, I want to find a modeler that can help me, and we want to provide that. So there's a lot of work going on, you could say, making the company bigger and better at presenting and making our products useful. So hopefully in beginning of 2025, you will have seen a little bit of a shift in quality when it comes to how we present ourselves. Any question? Or that was maybe that was just my sales pitch.
I think it's been noticeable. I mean, certainly from the like you say, from the websites and from the newsletter that gets sent out, and which is a good reminder for me anyway to go and visit the website and get latest versions and check out what's been happening. So I think it's a positive initiative. And if it leads to, I always like the idea of sowing the seeds at the ground root. Some of the universities, more modelers means more people doing the right thing, more potential customers for your product in the future. So it's a good long-term strategy.
Mm-hmm. I actually looked up, I searched on YouTube. It's like, what's wrong with programming? What's wrong with software development? And found some, right? And started watching. And then, of course, YouTube, picks up and poured people, YouTubers with quite a lot of followings that talk about, what's bad in languages, but also like what's wrong with the project model, how should we do about it? And then I find it fascinating, and I'm speaking to a convinced crowd here already, but I mean, why is it that no one points out the obvious, that basically the tools we're using were invented in the 1970s and they're basically the same? I mean, the programming languages and database SQL haven't really changed in 40 years. So why is that? And no one points out that thing in these videos. And we would love, to ask them to have a look at us in a few months to see, what do you think? You who are critical about the software industry, can you be a little critical about us? I mean, even if they come out and say, you have gotten it all wrong, well, then at least we have some feedback on what I think has been neglected for a long time. Because if there are great ideas from the UML and that late 1990s, and then it kind of have fallen dormant. So even if they're not celebrating this now, at least then we are in the discussion, because that is really sorely lacking, I think. And of course, also that's what we hope to get from the university students and all that, like a new debate about why shouldn't you, if nothing else, why shouldn't you approach software development like this? Because one of our new employees, he pointed out that the students he has talked to, he says, well, they are millennials or even later, right? So they have an attention span of 10 minutes. So you need to be quick, and they want to do something and then see the result. They don't want to spend a week trying to understand how to get and start writing code and all that. So we hope that maybe their short attention span will be a boost to us rather than the general. Let's see. And here's Charles, who is one of our new guys working. He has written quite a lot of now wiki articles. So he's worked with documentation, and he's also going to work with overhauling the main site, so it will contain more useful information. And Stephanie, who is hiding behind the S, she is the one driving YouTube and you could say content management for the wiki and the blog and these things. Then we have another guy, Edgar, who is the tech guy to work on the details on how our presentation is going on the wiki and the blog and other sites.
Yeah, just as you said, millennials, they want results, and why shouldn't they? It's fair. So I just scrolled through the new blog, and then I found this old article that I wrote some years ago, pointing out that MDriven is not one thing, it's 7 and some extras. And what are the 7 things? The fully normalized database schema that you get from doing UML, the business layer objects and put constraints and rules that you get, that you can do view models from the OCL expressions, that you can expose those as REST, that you get an UI layer that actually displays the view models if you want that, that you can declare actions on how to navigate between view models and change data, that you get a out-of-the-box streaming interface that sends the differences between the server and the client when rendering these screens. So these are the main 7 things that actually doesn't have anything to do with the business problem, but only with the technology stack that everyone sort of needs to get past up to this level in order to have things actually done. And that's what you get with the MDriven stack out of the box. So I think it's a great tool for anyone that is in a hurry. And
so
Damien, yes, please.
Oh, one of the challenges I have, and maybe you're already starting to look at this, is there's some great information out there. I hadn't seen this. I was pulling up this 7 article on my other screen here. But one of the things that can frustrate me is what's on the main MDriven page versus the blog versus the wiki. And I don't know if you've got plans to centralize that, but I never go to the blog site. And so that's why I've never seen this. I always go to the wiki site.
Mm-hmm.
It would be good to consolidate those somehow, a centralized search or something. I don't know, but that would be helpful.
I think it's like 36 hours ago since we refreshed the blog, and I'm sure we're working on also representing, you could say, some old material and making it better. I'm sure we'll come up with a way to index them both so that you can search and find them across the board, which is a great idea. Or it's good that you point this out, and I'm sure Stefan is listening to this, so we should do that. But we also
sorry to interrupt you, but
yes, please.
It's helpful. It kind of lets us help ourselves, right? Because I'm sure everyone else who taps you on the shoulder for help tries to do so in a non-pesky way. And so the more that we can go find things, and even if we still end up with a question at the end, can give more of the background and what we've done, makes it easier. It lightens your load, I think, if we can help ourselves a bit more. And I'm a big proponent of that.
Yes. So that's one of the main goals with the bootcamp. Of course, you guys are way ahead of the bootcamp, but what we want to do is when new people try to start to get curious, and that they should have a path that is complete, so they can go from first discovery to complete delivery. And I think maybe so what you have had issues with lately, Damien, is the install of MDriven server and turnkey server. And your case is a little bit different than the normal case, since you're transposing an existing system and lifting it from old technology to new. But it's not very much off. So what we should have, and what should be easy to find, and maybe we need to tweak that, is to find the install articles for how to install MDriven server.
And the plan for it, but I don't think it's there fully yet, is that the left menu on the wiki is going to be much more helping you to find things top down. So you can go like installation, and then you can see all the different platforms, and then there will be articles on all the different platforms following there. So this left menu, we are working on it, but it takes more time than one can, that meets the eye to get everything the right way. But we're very hopeful now with the whole new team that can pour in their efforts to clean it up and make it much more available.
Yeah, and don't take my comment as a complaint. I think you guys have done a lot of work, and it's obvious. I just kind of want to be a good client, and so if I can make suggestions that help.
Yes, thank you. I mean, it's good if we don't get your feedback, so that's perfect. I just want to tell you that we are working hard to get it better, because we know there's a lot of things lacking, and this because there's much more in the product than is available outside the product, you could say.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It looks great.
Yeah, good. So in the invite, I said that we should probably explain what we did about the unsolicited traffic. If we have a site that is internet facing, we discovered that it was fairly easy to overload it with or rather, if someone attacks your site with a lot of probing it to see if there are any exploits on it, they will bombard you with thousands of queries to just see if what kind of technology you have under the hood, and if you have the right versions and the exploits, and we'll try to use the normal installation paths and things like that. And all of that sort of brought down our turnkey front-end servers, due to we treating them with full respect and saying that, whoa, this page maybe wasn't available on this site, and but we still started the application and took some space on the server to service them. So what did we do about that, Lars?
Well, we've done, the main thing is that if your request pages that doesn't lead anywhere, after a couple of requests, you will be slowed down, basically because it requests too much echo spaces, you could say. Each request requests a new echo space. So if one IP address wants to have more than 3 or more than 2, I think, at the third one, you will get a slight delay. And then the more requests you send, the slower it will be. So it basically makes it difficult for an attacker to overload your system. It won't stop it, because it's really difficult to say what is incorrect in a correct request before you have even looked at it. And that's a problem. If you analyze the request and actually look it up, and you have kind of spent too much time already. So it needs to be slowed down before you even fully analyze it. And that's why it's done now by IP address. Yes.
Yeah, just going to say that this doesn't mean that you can only have one application or one window open. It has to do with the browser, so you couldn't have multiple tabs on the browser, no problem. So it's a combination of IP address and session cookie.
And that will take echo spaces. So because that's the expensive part, spinning up a new echo space and starting to serve a client. So that will happen the first request. Sorry.
Yes, and it's not expensive as such, but it's much more expensive to to create 1,000 that you're not going to use, because that builds that forces the server to remember these 1,000 until it felt sure that they were not coming back. And that was a timeout. And that timeout you can set in various settings files as described on the wiki. But still, if that was 10 minutes, you can do plenty batches of 1,000 in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and it's not the way a normal, if you have normal users, they probably won't arrive 1,000 of them or 100 of them in 1 second. And that's what happens if you have someone who's just flooding your server with requests that tries to intrude and find weak spots in your infrastructure. So usually you get hundreds of requests in a second, and then to spin up echo spaces and answer them properly will be a waste of your server's resources. So it will reply to the first, and then the second, and the third, and then it will start to slow down. And when it gets to, I think, 15 or something, it will be several seconds before they get a response. So it will slow down to a crawl, which is important. I have to point out, though, that we are still testing these features when it comes, if you put this behind a load balancer. So I'm still running tests because there are some headers that needs to be sent if you're behind a reverse proxy, or and those needs to be handled properly. And we think they are, but still in testing. And also there are some exclusions if you have private addresses. So if your requests come from private addresses like 192, 168 and those ones, or 172, for example, or 10 dot something, they are excluded from some of this load balancing stuff, or the handling of how we look upon them when it comes to attacks, because usually we assume that you will not be attacked from the inside. In this way, at least. Of course, passwords and all that is a different story, but what usually how a reverse proxy is set up, it has public IP and then it has a private one on the inside. So you want your server to listen properly to the inside server, but then it needs to know where it came from the outside. So there's HTTP headers that are set to handle that.
Yeah, and if you have a reverse proxy, that too will have ability to throttle incoming traffic and maybe even hardware support for it. So that won't be it's probably better handled in the reverse proxies in the end. Well, maybe not, because you can't really say what it is. So yeah. Good.
Just general, is there a reason Windows 11 isn't mentioned, or is that just kind of on there?
Yeah, that's just an oversight, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, read Windows 10. I mean, they're very close, right? I haven't noticed any difference from a development perspective, really.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. So the other item that I said in the invite was that we have had requests for things to work a particular way, and it's always hard when we want to be a generic product to accommodate some of the things without settings. So we have added quite a few settings, but we might scale them down if everyone agrees that, or if we agree that it's a good feature. But I thought we should have a look at the settings. So first of all, the way we did this to demystify the settings was to put them in the database itself. Yeah, I guess I should show on screen here. Basically, have a class which is a singleton and is named according to a pattern. We have started to do this for quite a few things, inventing modal patterns. So it's only looking for naming and to see if it matches the pattern on the inside, and if it does, it triggers some kind of functionality on the inside. And of course, to get access to the patterns, you could either read a wiki and type really carefully, or you can use the thing that we use for. Okay, just got a breakpoint here. This assets TK that pulls patterns from the GitHub. So these mergeables and snippets, etc., are a good place to find patterns. I'm not sure that everything from here is there yet, but eventually it will be. So looking at the settings that we have here is one that's called global read-only mode, and a link to read about that. So that's an ability to have this toolbar with the edit button, and I guess that goes hand in hand with the toolbar mode. I'm going to show you how it looks. Let's see if I'm running this now. I think I am. So this is a typical example of the toolbar. I can hide this and make this a bit smaller so I see you. Where we have pulled quite a few actions from the left side into the toolbar. And the usability of this, we think it's much better to enable people to be sure that things that are here are the important things, and this is only navigational things left here. The navigational things will be here as well to allow for people to completely turn this off. And let's see the edit thing. This particular.
So the scope of this. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
And the scope of this is purely web development, yeah?
Yes, it is. So it would be possible for us to implement it in VPS F as well, but we haven't. So we haven't had a.
I think more my point asking the question, because I figured that was the answer, is, you know, on the get-go from the page that you went to, the MDriven MiscSettings singleton, do you ever think about having, you know, because certain things are pertinent to certain scopes, you know, like WPF or web-driven only or something, but just having a little, this pertains to kind of what the scope is, what versions the scope is relates to.
Yes, that's a good idea. So on pages like this, we should have some kind of clarification if it's not supported in a particular platform. And one should assume that everything is supported everywhere, but when we are lacking in implementation, we should definitely point that out here. Good point. So I'm going to navigate to a view here, view one thing, and this, everything is locked here except these. And why these aren't locked, although I don't have the edit mode turned on, is because these are only variables. But these are persistent data, so those are locked. And when I press edit, they are unlocked and I'm able to change them. So this logic was meant to help users to feel safe about navigating around in the application. And they know that nothing can happen until they have unlocked the page. And it's also so that actions will disappear that or become unavailable if you're in a locked. So this is now what do you call it? Disabled. And that's another of the settings that we have available here. Global hide action on disable. So that would be a way for usability to completely remove things that aren't necessarily needed when you navigate around. It's a little bit of a choice how you want to communicate with your users, because most of the time I find that showing a disabled action helps the user to know that there's an operation that they can do, and then they think that they might want to do it. But if we hide it completely until they can do it, they don't even know what to ask for. So this timeout thing, I've been testing the timeout and implemented it for Blazor, so it pops up now because I turned it down to 1 minute to not go crazy. But we saw also another thing when we go into edit, that we now have a lot of buttons up here. So that's because once we had the read-only mode, users became annoyed that whenever we saved, it became locked. So whenever we saved, it became locked. And that's the normal behavior. But then we introduced a setting called global read-only use save and lock. So that says if it's set, it adds a save plus a save and lock button to the toolbar to enable less hassle with constant need to unlock after save. So that was a feedback that we got from users that, okay, I unlock and I change some things. And of course, I want to save it because I don't know. But then it became locked, and then I had to unlock it again. So a specific button to just save, and the normal one is save and lock. Yeah. This one is not going to touch upon that too much today, but this is connected to if you install LibreOffice on the same server as your turnkey application runs at, you're able to use that to convert to reports and other documents to PDF quite easily. So that's a good thing that's described more here. The global centered pop-up setting was a thing that normally we center modals, but pop-ups usually show up where you click. But then there was a request to also keep the pop-ups centered. And I wasn't too sure about that everyone wanted that. I think actually it's better to have the pop-up next to where you click, because that's just so if you click here and something pops up down here, you want the pop-up in most cases to be just an extension of where you are, not something else. So we made that a setting to be able to turn it off and on. And the global Blazor client, that's pretty much if what's going to happen when you press the index. So this doesn't have that set. If it would have, yeah, it's caps lock on this one. It will behave like this. So you come into Blazor and all of these things should work the same pretty much in Blazor. So it's that's the goal, that you shouldn't really see any difference if you're in Angular or Blazor. But this setting can then, this setting. So setting number 6 was to say what you want first. And maybe we will do that standard at one point in the future when everything has come a bit further. This is an interesting setting that allows me to inject my own components in a way described quite elaborately on the wiki. So there's a few things that you need to know before doing this, but once you do, you can actually inject or override all the type components in Blazor with your own thing. So just to prove a point, I've done stupid thing here. Let's see if I have this on screen. I need to implement this interface, iComponent type switch broker. And I compiled this in an assembly. And this has a method called switch this, and I get a type in. And if that is of type MD component text field, I'm going to replace it and instead instruct the runtime to use my text edit replacer. And my text edit replacer is compiled from this Razor code. And this is where I put my extra text to signal that this is what this is actually my component. Made this just now, and I'm going to compile that. So that's a new component that, of course, I would want to be able to show here, but this works like all the other things. It's copied with the assets and such, so I need to do some tweak on the model to get the change. I'm going to delete this attribute 1 and resave it. And then it's updated to, I made this just now. Of course, that's not much of a component to show, but I think you can imagine that anything is possible once you have the ability to pretty much do both HTML and C# in this nice mix. And of course, you can call whatever you want in your C# code from here. In your front-end C# code, not necessarily your back-end code, because that would be security nightmare. Yeah, and then we had, this is important for you as well, Lars, to note that global navigate on double click without menu. Because what we did was that when you double click something like this, let's see things in the search. Normally you get a menu here, and what we had up to this point, that when you double click, you always get the menu and you get to choose, unless there was only one item and that item also navigated. But that became a hassle for users because they were used to double clicking and getting the first action. So we introduced this setting. And of course, the only issue is on when you are on a mobile phone that doesn't necessarily have right click, which you can use now to get to menu if you want it. And how would you get to the other things easily? But since we always have this context menu now, these buttons, it's possible to get to them anyway. So we thought that this is a good middle ground to support both. So when I double click now, I don't get the menu and it navigates to the first one, enabled one. So that's good.
It talks to me because I've been, struggling with this in different scenarios.
Yeah, and then this is the last one. So it's a global setting. That's why it's called global. With global, I mean that there's only one option. It's the same for the whole app. And whenever these global settings are set, you are usually required to restart the application because we only read them once. But this one, modal offer open standalone. So the background for this is when a modal window is shown, it doesn't show the left side actions as it did, and it doesn't even show the toolbar. And you're not allowed to do modals from modals. Nested modals are not supported on the web. It's, however, supported on VPF, but it's not necessarily a good user approach to have them go down a rabbit hole with modals and then get locked up. So that sort of caused a few issues, because if you forgot to do something that you wanted to do, like create the thing, and you can't do it in this modal because it's on the left side action, then you got stuck. So what this setting does is it adds this button. And that button, I've learned today, is named the icon in what do you call it, material design from Google. The icon is called Open in New. And that's exactly what we want to do. So if you click this one, it opens just this view that was modal in a new tab. So whatever you wanted to do, like if you wanted to add some details, you can do that and save. And then maybe you have access to them here.
So does that mean that one has to design for like both modal and, I mean, they are usually the same kind of, but
no. So this is optional if you want to turn it on.
Yes.
But once you have turned it on, you will have the ability to open any modal window in a standalone tab. And I've given that some thought, and I think that it's benign. I don't think it's dangerous really, because if you have access to this, you probably should have access to this. And
can you navigate out of that thing then? Or is it like still a modal, but it's in a separate?
No. So this is basically just a new app. So you can navigate from that.
Okay.
So it's nothing strange about it. It's just a convenient way to get access to this one, so that you can do stuff. So I think it became quite good. It's a good addition to, so that you don't have to design for particular modal. My timeout. Modal things. You can just if there's a particular thing that a particular user needs, he will find it here, and he doesn't need to. You don't need to design in a button to bring it forward. That's the general idea now.
Can I ask you a question about? You're kind of through this list,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
I just wanted to touch on when we now talked about we have Blazor and you have added all these new UI features and things. Are there other things available, for like, I guess it could be done in Angular also, but is it easier to implement in Blazor? Things that you could move, for example, a pop-up like the modal window. I mean, the web doesn't have any built-in support for moving a window, right? But
Yeah,
I guess it could be implemented, and resizing it, and like, why not? Because maybe some of the ask for having it in a separate view is that you actually want it to be bigger, so you could just resize this one, because we are used to Windows where you can do so many things, and then on the web you can do nothing.
Yes. Yeah, and I was going to hopefully a related question: would this override feature make it easy to use a third party, and would that be worthwhile? Something like Developer Express's controls.
So yes, the idea behind this type broker that you can blanket replace all things is that you would be able to inject a third-party library to get another control. Having said that most things on the web are 99% styling and very little extra functionality. The things that do have functionality between in the normal UI settings are grids, data grids. And they usually have like sorting and resizing and things like that. We will, within short, also add a filtering for all the grids. So and of course, I've seen the Dev Express grid. It has like grouping and stuff like that. And I'm not totally sure that is a good way to replace the data grid. There's a lot of things happening in the data grid. It's even if it's straightforward, it's not super easy to get all the details. Like, I want to multi-select and I want that multi-select to maintain the v-selected variables so that I can act on it with actions, etc. So
we're getting dangerously close to business logic being in the UI, right?
Yeah, yes. So the other way to inject components is to do one-off components, and that's also supported with this tag that you can set a tag value. Let's see where it explains about the tag value.
Can I mention when we're talking about grids and sorting and things, I have had several introductory architectural like talks with the new team members, Charles here, for example, and we looked at some previous PowerPoints that were supposed to be narrated by now, and they talk about all the different ways where you're sorting and organizing things in your view models. And my hope is that they will be able to take it all the way to actually becoming wiki articles and maybe YouTube clips that actually show, because there's so much that one should be aware of when you're searching, sorting, because of, as you know, client sorting, as this would be, right? You're sorting in the UI. It's too late if you want to, if you have found from A to B, and then you say, hey, sort it, and then you want Z to X, then you don't have that in memory. So you need to be aware of where you're actually filtering, sorting, all those things.
But Lars, that has become a lot clearer, I think, UI-wise, when we have this paging. Because if the result set is larger than what fits on the page, this will show, and then you sort of directly see that, well, this is only sorted on the data I have on this page.
It's just that, you know, some users...
Prior to the paging, we had, it wasn't really clear that the result was cut off from the database.
True, but I've always added those anyway. So my users have had those and they still don't understand. So
no.
I'm just, you know.
Yeah, so of course there is ways and to influence the database query to do the order expressions in the database, and that would be neat if one could use the same kind of click in the headers to get to function. So there are ways to do that, but it's advanced. Before I forget, you asked Lars if there would be ways to resize or to do new things now that we have the Blazor capability, and I think definitely it would. But also when it comes to dialogs, there is a new dialogue thing in HTML5. So there's a new tag in HTML5 that's supported by all the browsers, which is named dialogue. And
everyone, that's my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today we are going to be going over the 9 sexiest.
No.
Okay, that was I don't know where that came from. And so this might be something that we want to hook into to do dialogues. But I just saw this when I was doing Blazor, but then I defaulted back to the old way.
So this this new, so this is like a built-in feature with dialogues?
Yes, that's a new thing.
Very good, because there's we have struggled with creating them in the right way that fits for different devices, and it's never really a good way to do it. So maybe if it's a built-in thing, then the browser can do it in the way that it fits the user.
Yes, so it's a fairly good I think it's supported everywhere that we need to be.
Great.
Yeah, good. We are running out of time, but
oh yes, we're Yeah, so I think these articles that we're mentioning, they will clarify in a good way what is done, should be done, or can be done in SQL Server, what should and can be done in your EcoSpace, and what should and can be done in the view model, and how you do like quick filtering and database searching and ordering in the different ways.
Yeah, great. Thanks everyone for showing up, and we'll be hard at work to have something new to say in a month.
And it's good. Thank you for feedback. I'm sure we will take you up on, for example, cross-indexing blog and wiki. Maybe the wiki, if the blog can come into the wiki sometimes even, so they are there in both places. But I think we also need a blog that kind of, you can read the top part all the time and doesn't have to know what to look for. So that's the reason for it. So, but thank you, Damien, for that comment.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good
Thank you very much.
day, evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.